Remember the costly discipleship that you have displayed for all of us, and help us to do the same as we go out into the world and deliver the good news that you are alive in each one of us. We come fully knowing that we all need redemption each and every day, Lord, recovery and your forgiveness. So help us to lay them all in front of you. And at this time, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever.
Good morning. We have two gospel readings today. Would you please stand if you're able? The first one is from Matthew, chapter 16, verses 21 to 26. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Out of my sight, "Satan, you are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of man." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it. What good will it be for a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? Or what can a man give in exchange for his soul?" Our second reading is from the book of John, chapter 11, the first 37 verses. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus was now sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you're going back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees by this world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light." After he had said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up." His disciples replied, "Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better." Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So when he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake, I'm glad I was not there so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Then Thomas, called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world." And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." For some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Please be seated. You know, there's a saying that English may be the easiest language to acquire to begin with, but the hardest language to master. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because I think there's so much nuance, and it's an amalgamation of so many languages put together and the culture coming together, making new words, and you know, there's a difference between American English versus any other English as well. You know, there's a Southern New Jersey English versus Northern New Jersey English, right? You might go down to Florida and you say, "I don't understand you people." It's a little different, right? There's a lot of nuanced words that sometimes we need to define each and every day, perhaps. And you know this from talking to probably your young people. A lot of the times I have no idea what they're talking about, so I have to ask them. Apparently there's a dictionary online that you can search, and it'll tell you, is it Urban Dictionary, or, you know, there's a lot. And I think depending on the context, the meanings change, but there's one word that defines it in different ways. For instance, the word love could mean a lot of things, right? It could be something that's very compassionate, or it could be very small. I love ice cream, versus right before you say, "I do, I love you." I mean, those are vastly different understanding of what that word is. I hope. If it's not, there's something that we have to, I think, kind of figure out. Happy, being happy, versus joy. What really is the difference? And I think there's a nuance there. So I had to look it up. And this is obviously depending on how we want to receive it. Joy and happiness, defining them in different ways. Happiness is typically described as a state of well-being characterized by emotions ranging from contentment to intense pleasure. It is often associated with specific tangible outcomes or events. It's temporary, conditional, and pleasure-driven. And that's interesting to read this and try to understand this, because you know, there's a sensibility that all people are pursuing happiness. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, because young people, what's the end goal here? What do they say? "I just want to be happy." Right? I just want to be happy. I want that feeling of being happy. Contentment. Is that really what we're looking for? I'm not sure. Let's explore joy. What does the word joy mean? Joy on the other hand, is a deeper, more enduring state of a contentment that is often less dependent on external circumstances. It's long-lasting, intrinsic, resilient. Some of the sources and triggers of joy and happiness can further illustrate the differences. Happiness is like achieving goals, positive experiences, material possessions, and social interactions, and so on. You have this happiness when you acquire things, right? Do you have those moments where you save up something and for a long time, and then you buy a car, your first car? That's a dream car of mine, and I'm gonna get it. Or that's a dream, mansion that I want to get. You want it, and you buy it, and you live in it, you ride it. The first time you do it, it's incredible, isn't it? I can see it in people's facial expressions when they receive it. For a lot of young people, it's whenever they have this first experiences of things, and there's seems like a lot of happiness in their faces, but after a while, what happens? It quickly wanes down. It's a house. It's a car. Now it becomes a function rather than a source of happiness. Did you find it to be true? I think so. Joy, on the other hand, is experiences of spiritual or in religion, acts of kindness or altruism, personal growth and self-acceptance, deep connections with others. So these are both positive feelings, but there's a certain nuance. I hope you got the gist of what those two differences may be, perhaps in some ways. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness is a feeling a lot of the times. Joy, on the other hand, could be occupied in a same space where there's hardship, there's grief, there's difficult situations, right? And I think that's something that our gospel lesson really tries to deal with in the state of not only the disciples, but also Jesus too. The most famous sentence we say is what? Jesus wept, right? Some say it's the most powerful sentence that's ever been created, perhaps. Jesus wept. And you would think that Jesus knows all about the happiness and the joys that we could ever imagine. But in the midst of his ministry, Jesus wept. It's complicated. And in this space, anyway, I think things are complicated. In the pursuit of happiness, we do a lot of things. And once we feel that happiness, all of a sudden it's gone. I think for many people, especially if you're on a mission trip somewhere and then you come back, you remember the process. And the outcome, you might think, is what was really the outcome of it? Did we make any kind of a difference here? What do we do? And some may question that because at that moment when you're helping people, maybe there's some happiness that resided in you, and the moment that you left and you reflect on it, you said, how much of a difference do we really make? Might be a question that occupy a lot of us. Or a situation where, especially for those students, when we start to, and I get where the education system is going, where the class rank is out of the people's minds, where this pursuit of having that achievement sometimes is tied to how happiness might happen, but the outcome of joys that pursuit perhaps is misunderstood. You know how we say that's a great job when we get our children who come with A average or what have you, and these kids are doing the best that they can. But what happens to those who study really, really hard and don't do quite well? How do we make that distinguishment of, is that a good thing or a bad thing then? When they come with a C average, but they tried their best, how do we understand that? In some cultures, we say, you didn't try hard enough. It's something I think we need to really think about, because that's just in one realm. I think let's translate it into our lives. We were made to be good, right? God created all of us in His image, and we're all created to be good. And this pursuit that we have, the lives that we have, it's complicated, right? It's complicated because when our life, let's say, our physical entity is done and we have this, when we look back, what kind of grade should we get? Is it the outcome of what we have done, this positive moments that's all added up, that determines that the value of the life that we've had as Christians or not? If it were so, this could be a very, very interesting place that we live in. John Wesley once said, God is not an accountant. Have you heard this statement? Where John Wesley said, God is not an accountant where He gives you a plus on the plus side when you do good and the minus on the minus side if you do bad, and you tally it up at the end of the day, and God says, you're in because you have more positive marks. Is this your first time hearing this? Oh, okay. So He said this. and so his statement is basically, God is not an accountant in this way. One of the ways that God sees us is how we relate to one another, how we relate to God. It's about that journey that we have, and perhaps it's really the presence that we have with God. This journey, this pursuit. How functional are we as Christians as instrument of God's purpose for others, perhaps? There's a saying, there's a lot of research going on in this state of affair that we have as young people. Seems like they have no desire to live, or they have no desire to occupy the space in the way that we have done in the past. And some of the people that studied this, what they found out was, note that these people leave behind. There are two words that pop out all the time. I feel useless. I am not needed anymore. That shocked a lot of people, but it's very, very understandable. What are we here for? I don't think, I think it's not by accident that book by Rick Warren, Purpose-Driven Life, was such a success because it gave people an understanding. It's not really the outcome, it's that pursuit. It's how we live our lives today, and that journey is what matters most. The outcome is already determined in some ways when we really think about it. Even though, on this pulpit, I'm supposed to say in an Armenian way, which is to say, in the Wesleyan context, that everything is not determined, right? It's grace. We have the freedom to choose or not to choose. But if we believe that Jesus Christ saved all of us from our sins and we are all redeemed, if we accept that to be a de facto true statement, then what is it? It is determined, isn't it? The life after is determined for us. It is given to us. And when does that start? And I think that's the very moment where we find ourselves to be having the state of being, have joy in our lives. We look at the text today given to us. It's long text. Gospel of John is a long text that really has, Jesus weeping, because in this journey, you would think that that journey should have been smooth. By the way, if this is the Son of God in our midst, why should there be such difficulties? Even Jesus was telling us that not all journey is going to be rosy. It's going to have its moments. It's going to have its moments of grief and perhaps tears along the way. But knowing what is to come gives us a sensibility that we keep doing what we do. We all have a purpose, and we call this the talent that God gave all of us. And when we talk about stewardship, when we say our time, talent, and our finances or our treasure, what is this talent that you have? That word comes from techne in Greek, is how are you making things happen? God gave all of us a certain understanding of how we should operate, because you know who you are. Once you know that, I think it becomes very easy for us to do the bidding of God. Those of us who are here today, trusting God to really deliver us from who we are in many ways, but giving us a sense of purpose in how we deal with each and every one of us, how we relate to one another, is going to be a moment that really gives us an impact to wake up in the morning and go on that day knowing that it will be a good day. Jesus says the words, in order to find life, you have to lose it, right? It's really to give ourselves for others. I really like the statement that says, I come second, and perhaps maybe we could add to it, maybe we come third. Maybe God, others, then us. And when we're in that mode of operation, I think it will be a lot easier to understand what God was here in flesh for all of us. Happiness and joy, when we recategorize it, the pursuit of happiness, that's what matters more. Our way, some of us, we want to get to heaven, and that's why we do what we do. Some of us might say that. But that journey, nonetheless, whatever the motivation is, God made you a creature that belongs to Him. And that's why He came to save us all, to be with Him. So let's remember that as a church community, when we come together as this congregation, Central United Methodist Church, in what ways can we as a church community live out a sense of purpose that we have? What are some of those things that you can think of? Summertime, sometimes it's difficult. And when I first came here in 2018, I was told that don't expect a lot of people during the summertime. And I said, why? I would have thought you would have more people coming during the summertime. That's usually what happens. All the people who are in Florida should be coming here, right? But then they told us summer months are tough for our church because there's a lot of things that's happening. People go on vacations. A lot of people go to the tabernacle. So it's very, very light. Don't expect that. I think one of the things that we have to realize is there are a lot of people here. There's hope. There's an understanding that this matters. The Sunday journey, even starting with the Lord, matters to us and matters to you. In a culture, in a state of affairs that we're in, not a lot of churches can say that. And those people who are serving each and every week, why do you do the things that you do? And sometimes, as a pastor, I'm reminded, there's a 20-80 rule, the Pareto law that people talk about, 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. Have you heard that before? I'm sure you have. In a lot of churches, though, it's not 20-80. It's like 10-90, sometimes 5-95. And that's been pretty much my experience in the past. But this church is a little different. We see a lot of people doing a lot of different things and giving of yourselves in many different ways. And for me, that's joy to see and experience. even from the sanctuary you look around, and when you really think about what has to be done in order for this Sunday worship to happen, and those of you who are online, one may think it's just flipping on the switch and doing what you do. There's a lot of steps. You could ask them after church, do you guys know what you're doing? And they might say, somewhat, a little bit. It takes a lot to be just sitting up there. And for many of you, it takes a lot to be just coming Sunday morning. Especially when you have youngins, dressing them up for church and they say, I don't want to go to church today. It's not required by law, right? School, I understand, it's required by law, but church, who says it's required? I want to sleep in this morning. I know some of you probably had to fight your little ones to be up in Sunday school, being an acolyte over here, bringing the light of Christ in here. I know, it's not easy. But you're here, even in the midst of that, it's hard, but it's rewarding. That's joy. That's different. Happiness, on the other hand, is something a little bit different. Because of that joy, maybe you could have happiness, but I don't think it goes the other way around. One requires many other things to happen or make it happen. So all of us here today, as a church community, what is your function? What is your purpose? And I understand life changes. You can't do the things that you've done in your 20s. Pretty soon, Vacation Bible School is going to happen, and we'll probably ask help to move all those chairs. And if you're in your 90s, I know you want to come and help out. Don't. Don't. This is not to. Oh, we have one 90-year-old here today. You can come. It's okay. Our phases have changed that you might actually question, what is my purpose today? In my 20s and 30s, I've done this. What is my purpose today? What gives me joy with the Lord today? And those are the things that we should pray for. Sometimes it's just your prayers, and I know there are a lot of people questioning that too, because for some of you, even coming to Sunday mornings at your state, sometimes it's hard. And for young people too, just coming, some of you have been scrolling on your phone all night probably, up until 3 a.m., those 5 short-second videos, you swipe up, swipe up, swipe up. I hear some people have arthritis in their thumbs from flipping up. We do that over and over again. You see, that they think is happiness. It gives you some hit of pleasure, and they think that's happy. If that's the life that they had, they think it's probably happy. I've heard this from graduate students a long time ago, especially one person who said, people think when you retire, you're going to be happy. And that may be true for some people. There's this wise person, he must have been, when I think about it, to me, he was an old person. When I look back, he was only like 23, 24 years old, right? He was a young person, but back then I looked up to him. This is a wise guy, wise person. He said, I'm going to work forever until I can't. If I can't, I don't know if I would be happy. People think you retire and you're going to be happy, but he said, I've seen more people miserable, sour at life than anything else because they lose their purpose. This Christian journey, I think, is also the same way. And I know some of you might be in a situation where you said, I used to do these things when I was younger, now I can't do them anymore. It doesn't seem like I have purpose for the church anymore. I knew a man, he was 92 when he was still on the choir, not our choir. I know we've had choir members who were here at 99. That's an awesome experience, right? This person said, I have neuropathy now. I can't go up to the choir loft anymore. What's my purpose now? And I think we will all go through that, or some of you are going through that this moment right now, because you can't do the things, or you can't serve the Lord the way that you used to. But we all evolve in the scope of where God is, and my prayer for you is keep praying, and you'll find a purpose, you'll find a joy, whatever it may be. And sometimes it's the little things that matter the most. You know, God doesn't give us a grade by the scale of the things that you do in life. That's not who God is. God saw us to be good when we were just created, right? We were good. We didn't do anything, and we were good. Anything that we do after that is a plus, wherever you may be. And I understand for many of us, and the understanding for many people outside of the church is aging, and so where are they going? We all still have much purpose. You all have a purpose. Just being here sometimes, praying for others, that's a huge purpose. At home, coming back with an understanding that you felt a new presence of God, that you can be something for even your neighbor, praying for them, that's a new, profound way of finding purpose in God. Wherever we may be. You know, it doesn't take a lot to call somebody to ask them how they're doing. And maybe you can't do it physically, but you surely have a phone book. We have a directory, by the way. This is a plug in the directory. Get your directory, call somebody else. Hey, so-and-so is having trouble. Can you be of help? That's who we are. We are in the business of connecting with people and delivering the gospel the way that we're capable of doing. That's the capacity that we have. Not everything has to be physically demanding or physically able. It's not about that. Are we spiritually able? And that's what matters. And that's the joy and the bliss that we have with God. And we've been all blessed by that. All those people in the prayer list, pray for them. And if you don't know their names, try to find out who they are. That's one of the things that I think we could do for sure. And once again, when you are out and about, and I am sure you'll find somebody that you think, I've seen them somewhere. Ask for their names. And I think this is a wonderful congregation where I've heard people in their 70s hang out with 14-year-olds playing pickleball even, bringing them to Lowe's to get heavy materials. That's what the church should be. That's who we are. And I think in a grander scale, when we have that, when intergenerational of many people can come together and worship together, that's a beautiful scene that we can uphold. The first Sunday of the month is a wonderful vision when we have scattered throughout young kids coming up for communion with people who are a bit older and a lot older. That's a beautiful scene. And I wonder how God views that, and I'm sure it's a scene to uphold for all of us. The purpose of the church is recognizing how we can deliver the gospel. And you do that each and every day, starting here and going out and branching out always. So please prayerfully consider what your roles are this week and how you can get that done to find joy in your lives today. Amen? Now we come to the time of stewardship. Once again, time, talent, and treasure. Time, how do you spend your time with God? As we listen to Gene, ask God for a new purpose, perhaps. If you find yourself stagnant in some ways, Lord, what can I do to spread the gospel today? Keep praying about it, and you'll know. You'll know what it is. God will give it to you. So let's listen. And the treasure that we bring together to further the ministry over here, we have the plates in the middle and the far. You could always give online. You could mail it in. And to really broaden our ministries and mission efforts from beyond these walls today. Join me in the offertory prayer. Gracious, loving God, we thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us, poured out into us. As we give, as you have given us first, help us to reach out the way that you want us to, as we prayerfully consider how we do our missions here. And in Jesus' name, amen. Our final hymn is page 361. Let's sing it well. Page 361. if you could reach out to the person next to you, behind you, across the aisle even. There's pancakes there. I think there's more than pancakes. I think there's sausages and orange juice. There's just a lot of things. So please go. So I hope to see all of you going that way. So now let's receive the benediction. Go out in peace with the Word of God, and make sure that you find a way to spread the Word, that God is alive within you. Go with His love, power, and all that He can give you. Amen.